One of the big things that I hear when it comes to jobs and the job market as a whole is that certain jobs are very stable and secure. The concept that started a business is extremely risky, and getting a job and getting into a certain industry is a safe and stable way to build your future. I feel like when we look at the jobs market today and when we look at the world as it is right now, this has never been more false. It's never been more untrue. The jobs market today is a confusing place for a number of different reasons. We look at jobs for young people or inexperienced people, and all we see is things like 0 hours contracts or temporary workers, right? Temporary summer workers, temporary Christmas workers. This is where a lot of jobs are at the minute. These jobs undeniably come with zero security. And you could make the very same argument for 0 hours workers. It's very hard to say you have a secure job or income when you don't know which hours you work in. However, you could make a strong argument for the fact that this goes without saying. These are kind of what you expect from these jobs. But the fact that more and more people are being pushed into these jobs, as more and more companies seem to want part-time workers, temporary workers, or 0 hours contract workers, in itself is concerning for the broader labour market. But let's take that out of the equation for a second, and let's look at what you might consider to be the more traditional and stable jobs. Because it's interesting. As a 21-year-old, I know a lot of people who've gone down the university route and a lot of people who are becoming graduates. A lot of people even that graduated 1, 2, 3 years ago. And it's really interesting to see how many companies will hire graduates for maybe a year, 2 years, and then those people will be laid off or sacked. And ostensibly the reason for it is because the same work can be done by somebody else for a much better or cheaper price. And you even see this with a lot of older people, right? People coming into their 40s, 50s and 60s. And a lot of you guys will know of situations like this, where somebody comes to the upper level of their sort of pay scale and they often get dropped. I'm not saying this is always the case, but they get dropped for younger people who can perhaps work more hours or are willing to work more hours, often for less money because they're less experienced, and it's a foot in the door. As jobs become even more difficult to land, I feel like it's like employers have a lot more power over the workers themselves, because, if jobs were 10 a penny, right, and you could walk out of one place and into the next, you can pick and choose what you want a lot more. If you could perhaps land a degree, or even just a basic menial job, after applying for 5 applications, 10 applications, it wouldn't really matter. You could pick what you wanted to do a lot more. In a market where a lot of people need to submit 50 to 100, if not 200-300 applications to get one job, they feel like they are lucky for landing whatever they can. And that gives the employers a lot more power. So that's, in my opinion, why we have so many people who are willing to work on lower paid jobs for longer hours, or 0 hours, or temporary, because people need money now anyway, right? It's all well and good saying turn down a temporary job, turn down a 0 hours, turn down a 10-hour job that's supposed to be an 8-hour job. But if you're broke and you need money, and that's the only job going, it's no wonder why people will accept the position, because they need to have something just to get by. And these are people who are trying to work hard, which we need to bear in mind. So we have the older workers who often get replaced by younger people. Maybe they get made redundant, maybe they get sacked, whatever. And then we have the younger people, or perhaps the lower skilled people, who generally will just struggle anyway. Especially when you look at jobs like retail. Job security in these fields is often very, very low. And especially in today's market, with a lot of volatility around a lot of different sectors, around a lot of different businesses, the prospect of job security appears to be decreasing a lot more. It really does. There are certain jobs, of course, where there is a lot more security, but this is not the case as much as people may have thought in the past. These jobs are harder to land. They are less likely to keep you on for a longer period of time. This is from what I see from older people, right, 40s, 50s, who are decently into their career. Maybe they work in tech, IT. It's not as stable as people think, or as people thought. And this is super, super important to acknowledge because, like I say, we're talking about hard-working people here who are trying to further their mission, trying to further their life. And the jobs market for a lot of people is just an absolute joke. People feel like they get into a stable company and that's them good. They're into a well-paid job, they're into a well-paid company, and therefore they're not going to get laid off. This company's not going to go bankrupt or broke. All you need to do is look at layoffs in certain companies. Some of the biggest companies in Europe, the US, the world, are laying off workers left, right and centre. You hear these stories about people who've worked in a factory or a plant or a company, any kind of company, for 30, 40, 50 years, and then they just get dropped like a stone. They just get dropped when it's economically unviable. People think these companies might care about, John's got 30 years of experience. Well, not really. It's not that hard to train somebody. Not really. And especially in a lot of low-skilled jobs, this is exceptionally even more prevalent because well, what skills do you need to be a cashier? What skills do you need to stack the shelves? Not really any. And this is just a worrying trend that we're seeing all across the board. All across the board. People's jobs are just not that safe anymore. And to a degree, a job is still the most stable way to make money. You do get paid a set amount for the hours that you do. You do arguably get a set amount of shifts if you're not on a 0 hours contract, so you know what you're doing, where you're doing it. At the same time, people have this idea that if they work hard or if they just stay with a company, and it's not that true anymore. I feel like that's why we have so many people who are willing to job hop every couple of years. It's why we have so many people who just don't care about their company, and perhaps it goes two ways. The workers care less, so the employers care less, but I'd say it's the other way around. The employers care less, so the workers care less. If you don't even know that your job is certain for your long-term future, it's probably increasingly hard to care about it. And I think the idea is that it creates a degree of scarcity or even a degree of importance on hard work. Like companies feel like if your job is always on the line, you've got to work super hard. And I feel like this is where a lot of companies string people along. They play this job security card for years. And what I mean by that is, we might have to sack some people. The job's not that secure anymore. Driving people to just work harder. And say what you want about that, but it's just an interesting situation that we're in, I would say, in the jobs market. And this is just one of a few fronts and a few tactics that companies use. The world of work is not what it was once. There's less and less people. I mean, even think about yourself, think about people who nowadays works 20, 30, 40 years in the same company and is rewarded fairly for it. Less people are, and as time goes on, it appears to be becoming even less than what it is now. Job security and stable jobs, especially for graduates, young people, I don't think that they're as prevalent as people like to make out. And of course, there are still good jobs. Let's not lie. I know I should have probably said this earlier on in the video because people are going to leave comments saying, oh, well, you think that there's no good job. Of course there is. There's companies who are great, stable, happy, great places to work. Why would I say otherwise? It's not true. A lot of companies are still like this. But look at how many companies are not. So then we go back to this idea of job security in the modern world, and for a lot of people, it is not what they think it is. It doesn't really matter. It is what it is. But I've heard enough stories, I've seen enough people, and people need to at least have a think about this, right? We need to at least bring some attention to this. The jobs market is just not what it was, and then we've not even gotten to the concept of jobs that just don't exist being listed, right? It's a difficult market to navigate. It's not impossible. There's still a lot of good opportunities, but we need to bring some attention to this. And I just find it crazy. This idea of a stable job in a lot of markets, in a lot of companies, in a lot of industries is just a thing of the past. And we're seeing this play out in 2024, 2025. And if we do see a stock market or a broader economic downturn, I dread to think how that's going to affect job stability for that period even more. Just an interesting concept, guys, not really given a fact or a solution here. I just wanted to discuss this with you guys. Let me know what you think to it in the comments, and I'm sure I'll see you again soon. Goodbye. Thank you for watching.